4, 3, 2, 1. Hello, and welcome to another week of J.E.D.I. Lunch Break Live. I almost forgot where I was. How can that happen? That's crazy. Yes, we are J.E.D.I. Lunch Break Live. It is Thursday at noon, so we know we are in the right place. These are strategies for justice, equity, and inclusion. We hope that you are getting a lot out of these. Can you believe we are already in week 11? Well, today we're going to be continuing on our 3-part series to talk about how you know whether or not your organization or company is taking DEI seriously. Last week I gave some tips, and the week before I gave some tips around from different perspectives. In our first part of this, I talked about thinking about this from the perspective of this being in a potential employer space for you, and what that looks like. Thinking about a public statement, thinking about who manages the DEI work, and a particular note that if you're in a large institution and that work is being managed by HR as opposed to a direct report to the executive leadership, that may be a bit of a flag that they are pigeonholing or marginalizing the way in which inclusion strategies are looked at within the company. Because remember, when we're talking about a serious DEI program, it is not only thinking about the connection of people, but the intersection of people and systems. And so that requires someone who has the purview of an entire organization and not just the people part of that organization. And then that third piece is thinking about how the company is thinking about their reference. So that was our first 3 tips. And so last week I gave you 3 more, and those 3 were really designed to think about and think through what you can look for as a current employee of an institution or organization. And that starts right at the top with leadership commitment. It is followed very closely and is very much connected to the idea of written policies and practices. And then finally, looking around where your environment is and seeing whether or not you see a bunch of different kinds of people who are encouraged and supported in bringing a bunch of different perspectives. Which means in our third part, we got 3 more tips for you. 3 more tips about how you know whether or not your company or organization is taking DEI and workplace culture seriously. And in that, I want to start here. Inclusive hiring practices. Now, I have saved hiring intentionally for our third part of the series because I wanted to emphasize, and hopefully you've gotten this point, that diversity, equity, and inclusion is more than just inclusive hiring practices. Now, that is a key part, because if you are not feeling like you're going through a process that values you from the beginning, then it is not likely that you're going to feel a sense of super belonging once you work for a space that already treated you bad during the hiring process. So what are some things in the hiring process that you can be looking for? First and foremost, think about and this is why I love LinkedIn, because especially working within industries, you get to see kind of who else is looking at this job. Do you have things in common with them? For instance, one thing that I love that LinkedIn does is it'll tell you if other people from your alma mater have applied or worked there. It will tell you if you have points of connection. So, are they in your sorority? Are they in other people's sororities? Are they engaged in some of the same civic activities? The other thing is, if you're working at an executive level, who's recruiting you? Did they choose a recruiting agency that has a track record for inclusion? Is it an agency that is itself diverse? Because I'm going to tell you, if you want to know for sure if these recruiting agencies are the kind of agencies that really intentionally try to focus on having a diverse applicant pool, look at who the heck is working for them. That's going to tell you a lot. And then finally, when you're going through the process, or you're thinking about, or you're looking at your own company and how their process works, even if you are coming from the point of view of a hiring manager, think about whether there is a structured interview process. If the process is kind of loosey-goosey, and if there's not a structured plan for how that process is. So, some companies may start with a phone screen. They may have some task work or skills-based assessments that they do. They may then gravitate to something like a panel interview before a final interview. Whatever that process is, are there questions structured? And do you find, or is it just a general conversation? Sometimes people feel like, I love this process, because when I was speaking with the recruiter or the hiring manager, it was a real kind of easy, laid back conversation. But sometimes those can be deceptively biased. I prefer, and I know that they're taking diverse. Listen, let me be really honest. Let me take a minute to say this. And I've said it before. Diversity, equity, and inclusion must be intentional. I know of no one, even people who come from marginalized experiences, sitting in these seats, who can truly provide a inclusive hiring experience on the fly. So while you may feel more comfortable when those interviews are less structured and maybe even and feel a little less formal, where they're just asking you stuff off the top of the head, let me suggest to you that that is a key indicator that they have not thought about, nor have they planned for, bias that may exist in the process. So what you're looking for is a diverse slate of candidates and people working at the institution. Partnerships, if you're at the executive level, especially with recruitment agencies who specialize in attracting a diverse applicant pool. And probably one of the most important things, a structured interview process, because a structured interview process reduces bias. You also want to make sure that throughout the process, your questions and the things that you are asked about focus on competency, skills, and potential, rather than just traditional credentials. All right, and we're going into number 3. And the number 3 thing to think about when trying to assess whether your company or organization is taking DEI and workplace culture seriously is the benefit policies. The benefits and policies. Listen, if you work for a place that doesn't include things like flexible work arrangements, parental leave policies that are not just about maternal leave, but family leave policies, comprehensive health care that includes health care no matter what your family structure is, and accommodations for disabilities, and not just physical disabilities, but the range of disabilities, both permanent and temporary. This is going to give you a key sense of whether or not this organization is inclusive. And then finally, number three, evaluate how the company collaborates with external groups and stakeholders. What are they doing in the community? Do they partner with a variety of different communities? Or are they over here partnering with extremist groups like Moms for Liberty, or groups that tend to divide and are about division and separation? Although I myself am a person of faith, I am concerned about companies that are partnering with conservative evangelical organizations that are very narrow-minded in the way that they see people and identities. I am concerned about people who are only partnering with organizations that are where those organizations are only serving one segment of the community. Or maybe they're just partnering, and you can accomplish a community breadth, not through just the partnering of one organization, but the collective activity of a lot of organizations. I think about AT&T as an example, because they partner with a range of different organizations to meet their objectives. They're not just invested in one, but they look across the spectrum. I think ultimately, trust your gut. These are some things that you can look at. These are some things that you can consider, and it gives you an idea, a concrete idea, and a way to measure the ways in which companies and corporations are showing up and demonstrating and investing in DEI strategies. But at the end of the day, if you feel uncomfortable, if you feel like things are being done to limit your participation, to take credit for your work, to limit your ability to access promotions or professional development or mentorship, trust yourself and know that even though you can't maybe exactly put your finger on it, know that something's wrong. And let me just say, in this current employment market, there's another job out there for you. And I always encourage people to first seek their own happiness and well-being. All right. Well, we have one more episode. Can you believe it? It has been 11 weeks. We committed to 12 full weeks. Our 12th week is coming up next week, and we're going to deal with how you can show up to be more inclusive, because we've talked a lot, pretty much this whole series, about what to look for and what to be on the lookout on, what other people are doing. But I want to wrap this up with what you can do, because there are things that we can do to be promoting an inclusive environment around us. We all have the ability to be agents of inclusion. Whew. Okay, I know that's been a lot, but there's so much to talk about. And I should say, although we'll be taking a break in August, but not yet, we got one more episode coming up. You still have a chance to send us some questions. You can reach us at J.E.D.I at holidayadvisors.com. And as always, you can find this content by sharing, following, liking, subscribing to our various channels. And we will be back next week, same time, for our J.E.D.I Lunch Break Live Strategies for Justice, Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion. Bye. Join me next Thursday for a new edition of J.E.D.I Lunch Break Live right here on LinkedIn.